Welcome to this moment of mental awesomeness. I'm your host, Brandon H. Larson, and tonight we're going to talk about 10x goals. I don't know if you are familiar with Grant Cardone or not, but I personally love this guy and his attitude. He wrote a book. He wrote several books, actually, and the first one of them is called The 10x Rule. And we're going to talk tonight about some of Grant's 10x rules for goals. And you can go get this book. I highly recommend that you do if you haven't already. Because of some of the things that I learned from Grant, I made a lot of money in cryptocurrency. And we're going to talk about how I applied some of those goals to what I did in crypto to make a bunch of money. But anyway, in this moment of mental awesomeness, we're talking about the 10x rule with Grant Cardone. And one of the first things that he asks you to take into consideration when you consider these goals is that, you got to take into account that you've been educated with restrictions. Be aware of this so that you don't underestimate the possibilities. Meaning the reality is our education taught us how to go get a job, stay at a job, put money in a 401k, eventually retire, have a few years of life before we die. Grant hates that mentality. He does not really support that mentality. He supports going all in right now, make a ton of money right now so that you can live now and give now. It's hard to give if you don't have anything to give, right? So we're actually going to talk about that here in a minute. But so rule number one is he's setting his 10x goals is to remember that you are setting these for you and not anyone else. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. For example, in my own life, I've been in this house that we bought 2 years ago, and I actually want to pay it off in 5 years. And what did I do differently? I did not go get a traditional 30-year mortgage. I went and got what's called a HELOC in the first position. And it's a phenomenal program. So I put all my money into my house and every month it pays down. But because it's in a HELOC, that money is available if I want it or need it or want to go invest it, right? So my whole paycheck goes into my my loan, and it goes down. There's no escrow, there's no fees, there's no taxes taken out. So my mortgage is the payment that I have to make on the money I borrowed is lower. I do have to pay taxes on my own at the end of the year and whatnot. But with the HELOC in the first position, I can put all the money I earn into my HELOC, and then I pay my bills out of my HELOC. But each month, I only pay interest on the amount I actually owe. So in a mortgage, 30-year fixed mortgage, you pay like 3 times the cost of the house. I'm sure you've heard that by now. But in a HELOC, you pay it down. So let's just say I put $10,000 a month towards my HELOC. Well, now each month I pay interest on $10,000 less each month. So I'm paying interest on less and less and less and less. And it's that type of program that allows you to pay your house off in 5 to 7 years, not 30 years, with the same money that you make. You do have to be a little bit disciplined because that money is available for you to go spend because it's in a HELOC. But if you can do those things or invest like me in crypto and get big returns, I got a 6x return on my money in 1 year. Yeah, 6x, not 6%, 6x. And it was awesome. But these goals are for yourself. This reminds me of a saying, your opinion of me is none of my business, right? I don't care what you think of my goals. These are my goals. And I shouldn't allow what you think about me to reflect my goals, right? So don't let that happen. That's what Grant Cardone is saying here. Next, anything is possible. Don't think that you can't pay your house off in 5 years. Like, he helped me open my mind up to this, right? Like, yeah, what? No, I don't want to spend 30 years and pay 3 times the value of the house. I want to pay it off in 5 years or use that money to invest in other things, right? Because it's in a HELOC and it's available to me to invest. So anything is possible. Paying a house off in 5 years is possible. And whatever you want to go after, it's possible. You can do it. You have so much more potential than you realize. Once you start tapping into this style of thinking and mentality and attitude, especially if you start to follow Grant Cardone, which of course I recommend you do, follow him on YouTube and Twitter and start to get a feel for him. He's abrasive. He's aggressive. He may not be your type. I personally like that he's a straight shooter, tells it how it is. We live in the greatest country in the history of civilization. There's more opportunity than we realize, and you have more potential than you realize. You just got to tap into it. And that's what we want to help you do here with Mental Awesomeness. So I love this from Grant Cardone. Rule number 4, success is your duty, obligation, and responsibility, right? You've been so blessed. This is definitely how I feel. I have been so blessed that it is my duty, responsibility, and obligation to be successful with all that I have so that I can give more, quite literally. I feel that way. And it feels really good when you start giving more. And it's a funny thing because the more you give, the more you get. It is literally as though the hole you give through is the hole you get through. So if you're super stingy with your money and you're like, all right, I'll give you a little bit of money. And I know that probably looks funny, but right, you're like trying to stuff a little dollar bill in there. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to give, realize that that is also the hole that you get through, right? So the more you give, the more you'll get. The universe works that way. I personally believe in God, and I believe God gives you. If he knows that you're willing and able to give, he will give more to you to help other people. So that's what I believe. Okay, so moving on here. Number 5, there is not a shortage of success. This reminds me of a saying from Tony Robbins. It is not a lack of resources. It is a lack of resourcefulness, right? So tonight I mentioned that there's a program out there called First Lien HELOC. If you want more information, send me a direct message. I'll be happy to share with you freely, right? But I used my resourcefulness to learn about it, find out about it, go and actually get a first lien HELOC. Like I did something about it. I became resourceful because the resource was available. I just had to do some legwork to make it happen. And now I'm sitting in a good position, right? And so there's no shortage of success. There's nothing that we can't tap into. We live in the age of information overload, really. But because of that, you can tap into whatever you want. There's more resources, more abundance than have ever been available. And so if you tap into it, you can be successful regardless of where you're starting. Now, realize the next message, the next moment of mental awesomeness message that we're going to have is starting small, because I love the idea of 10x, but now how do you actually start and apply it? And that is by starting small. And we're going to talk about that in the next moment. So here's the last point that Grant makes. Regardless of the size of the goal, it's going to require work. And I know that seems so logical, but no matter what, work will be required. So the next 5 years are going to pass by no matter what, right? And so I can choose to be more efficient with how I pay off my house in order to accomplish it, but that requires work in getting it set up, work in continually contributing to it, work in not going out and blowing the amount of money that's available to me in my HELOC, right? Like there's more to it and than just saying, this is what I want, writing it down on paper and hoping it comes to fruition. You're going to have to get after it. And so Grant says there's one thing you got to do every day, and you will accomplish any goal that you set your mind to. And here's what it is. Write them down every day, morning and night, until they are a reality. That's a simple ask, because what happens is you literally implant it into your subconscious mind that that's what you want. And until it reaches your subconscious mind, nothing will ever change. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in Mental Awesomeness. But by writing it down every day, morning and night, you literally begin to implant that goal into your subconscious mind. And you do it until it's a reality. And then you pick new goals and you write them down until they're reality. And that seems like a simple thing, but most people won't do it because it's almost like it seems too simple. And just because I write it down doesn't mean anything. It's not the actual act of writing it down. It's the act of implanting that message into your subconscious mind That's why you write it down. Once your subconscious locks on to that goal, you will get it. You will absolutely get it. There's so much going on around us that our subconscious brain is literally blocking out. But once it locks on to a target, because you put it in there, it will begin to identify things going on around you that it used to block that will now get you to your goal. I hope that makes sense. That's reticular activating system talk, and we'll talk more about that in Mental Awesomeness as well. That's the message. That's the moment of mental awesomeness for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. We look forward to seeing you in the next moment of mental awesomeness. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.